Well, as you can see, we've got a pond behind me. We got some potential work to do here, so let's check it out. So, as usual, we get a call. Hey, I got a pond. I don't think it was built right. Can you come check it out? Absolutely. So you guys saw the pond behind me there moments ago. Well, as you can see, the hope was that the water level would be right there to that brown edge. You can see, based off the overflow, why the water is not to that brown edge. Emergency overflow was installed too low to get the proper water level. The contractor did put rock up at the top. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But you can see that that rock and that rock, there's a heck of a difference in water level. A big difference in water level. So as I walk around here, I'm asking questions to this potential customer. This is something that I have to quote. This is something that won't happen until 2024. We are completely booked up for 2023. But as I'm walking around this corner here behind me, I notice that there's some moisture down here on the ground. And I asked the question, how come you don't mow that? And his answer was, I can't get anything in there. It stays too wet 100% of the time. So now I start to have a concern. Not only is the dam not the same elevation all the way around to ensure the proper water level, but I'm beginning to wonder if there was a keyway truly put in this pond. And I have a sneaky suspicion, just going off of typical ways to build a pond, your keyway or your core is going to be significantly deep over there. But if you look at the natural lay of the land, you're naturally going to bring that core up on this corner. And I'm beginning to wonder if he just didn't get his core over far enough this way to ensure that there wasn't a leak path where he ran into original grade / new grade for dam. So as we walk around here, that is problem number one. Personally, I'm going to run this by DP, but personally, I feel as though step number one is to start digging down there and dig this back as far as we can comfortably without pumping any water out. Determine if that leak continues into the dam, and if it does, I know for a fact where I'm standing there should be a core, and it should honestly run to about right here. So if we can dig that back at least to the top of the back slope and determine the water continues, we can then pump this water down 2 or 3 feet. It's not as deep as what it's supposed to be. His assumptions were that this pond was roughly 9 to 10 foot deep, and maybe it should be, but since we don't have the elevation that's needed, I don't think we're 9 to 10 foot deep. I personally believe we're about 6 foot deep. And if we take 3 foot of water out of here, that leaves him with 3 foot of water. And I state that because he has stocked this with roughly 1,000 fish and roughly 1.5 years ago. So those fish that have survived are probably flourishing at this point. So if we can drain this pond halfway, repair the problem, and then let Mother Nature fill it back up, he may at least be able to keep his fish. But that's problem number one. As we walk around here, when I say an emergency overflow, there is not an overflow pipe anywhere in this corner and no overflow pipe anywhere in that corner. So as this water level raises, it basically ends up trickling through all of this riprap and ends up down there in the county road ditch. Well, you can also see that wet spot continues from up there all the way down to there. So we need to install an overflow pipe. This pond is spring fed, so you're going to have rainwater and spring water keeping this pond full. And that leads me to the question that I asked this potential customer. How much does your pond go down if you don't get a rain? He said roughly 1 foot. That was before I knew it was spring fed. He then tells me that it's spring fed. So it being spring fed, and I'm gonna show you guys that, and dry conditions. Remember, spring fed means it constantly has water going into this pond, but with dry conditions, he still loses a foot of water. So I am pretty confident that we do have a leak that has to be fixed down on that corner. But as we come up here, you have this pile of riprap placed ever so sort of nicely, but you guys can see the spring water over there. If you listen real closely, you can hear the spring water running. It actually comes out of the ground over there, goes around the riprap pile, and washes out its bank. So there's another problem. Riprap's in the wrong spot. So now we get to the point, we've discovered all of the issues. He did an okay job, but you can stand here and tell that it just, all of it slopes down to that corner, and it just loses the elevation needed. Here you can see really well where that water level is supposed to be. So you might be asking, what are you gonna do to fix it? Well, step number one is finding that leak. Why is it leaking? Did he not put a core in? If so, can we recore it? That's step one. If we can, and we're not just sealing off on sandstone that's never going to seal water, fix the leak, step one. Step two, we got to figure out what elevation really gets our water level about right here, but yet inshore we have 2 foot of freeboard. Why do I say 2 foot of freeboard? We would re-slope this just a little bit up in this corner to ensure all of this yard water ends up in this pond with the spring water. So we're going to feed this with 2 water supplies. Should always ensure that it has water in it, spring specifically, and then rainwater secondarily. The pitch that he has here, that water actually runs around the riprap, down the fence row, on the backside of what used to be original grade, and ultimately saturates the neighbor's property right here in these trees, and it causes a mosquito nightmare. So that's problem number 4. So what I have stated for a true solution: step 1, as stated, fix the leak. Step 2, find out if your neighbor will put a temporary fence in, not the first wooden, not the second one, but the third wooden. Well, he put in a temporary fence from the 3rd wooden stake down there to that gate and give me this corner. All I want to do is mitigate the water issues that his neighbor is causing for him, and I just need him to take his fence down, put in a temporary, let us put this back slope out further, which also allows me to provide a real solution for this pond, because if you remember back there by that riprap, we need to bring this water level up 3 feet. Well, I cannot bring that rock and this area up 3 feet because we are already steep. So I can solve his water problem, which also helps me solve his lack of water problem, assuming that we can fix that leak. Now, the leak is an assumption. However, it's really not leaking that bad. It's just there's a lot of clay in this soil. So you gotta imagine that water table is at a certain level, and now the pond is feeding that water table, so it's gonna pop out of the ground. It's gonna happen. But after we get that fixed, if the neighbor agrees to put in a temporary fence and remove his fence from that post to that 3rd post up there, get that temp in, kick this turn around, get that back slope fattened out, now we go to where the Jeep's sitting. That dirt was removed from that hillside, which used to run closer to us, carved out and placed here. Well, I can tell that this dirt seals water. Yes, it has a leak, which may be because there's no core. So I have a good amount of dirt over there, and the dirt that you see piled up is actually leftover topsoil that the previous contractors didn't do anything with. It's just sitting there, been there for a year and a half. For whatever reason. So we got topsoil, and we got fill dirt, and we have the potential to get good clay dirt to start just off the left-hand side of the Jeep where you see these cattails starting, raising that levee up, making the back slope fatter, and bring that extra 4 feet all the way through here, across where the overflow is now, and up to that corner where the second wooden fence post is. Now, with all that being said, I would not put an emergency overflow back in here. I would take this rock, I'd peel all this back to about right down there where it starts to flatten out, place it in that ditch, and then put a real overflow, probably a 15-inch pipe with the amount of water we're going to be sending to this pond, a 15-inch pipe with 2 foot of freeboard, bring the water level up 3 feet, so I need to add 5 feet, essentially, not 4 feet of dam to this area, and send that water right down there where it starts to flatten off, and then let the riprap keep wash from happening. To me, that provides this customer a real solution, and it provides this customer the ability to maintain his property, because as you guys can tell, he keeps his yard really nice. I mean, he's even mowing lines in this thing. You can tell he spends a lot of time to make his property look good, and what this contractor left him with was something that makes it really hard to maintain, and oh, by the way, it leaks. So as we get up here to this Jeep, I'll explain this to you a little bit. There's one more benefit that comes with this project. If I get down here on ground level, you guys can naturally see how this picks up, as I explained, from that corner, and naturally falls off to basically the bulk of the dam. This is good usable dirt. It's what was used originally to build that dam, as stated a minute ago. But the other benefit that this property owner is going to get, as we take this good dirt and utilize it over there, I have roughly 4 to 5 feet water level to top, 4 to 5 feet of dirt that I can take out of here. Well, oh, by the way, if that dirt stays good past that 4 feet, I can start carving that out and truly slope it into his front yard. And I'm sure you guys can see that if you draw a line from that water level to his yard through this hillside, that is a really nice, extended, long, slow, maintainable slope being the key, which in turn could allow him to grow his pond from that cattail straight through where we're standing, straight through the center of the Jeep to about the center of the topsoil pile and over to that riprap. So we've got a good 30 feet wide, at minimum 5 foot deep by 60 yards long of dirt to utilize from this area, transfer it around, and build that up to the proper elevation. Yes, this is going to not be the cheapest endeavor, because we got to back up the original work a little bit to put down good work that should ensure that he has all of his hopes and dreams taken care of. A larger body of water where he really wanted it, a view of his pond from his front porch, which topsoil kind of keeps that from happening, a pond that hopefully doesn't leak, and then also something that is easily maintainable to where his front yard can tie right into the water level, that allows him to just mow his yard instead of, you guys can see where he's had to weed eat all of this. He can't get a mower down in there, so he's down here weed eating all this to keep it looking nice. And to me, that just, this is one of those situations that I get aggravated about. You know, not everybody can call us, not everybody can hire us, but it's really aggravating when you come to a job site and you see that this is what an individual that paid hard-earned money, and this is what he was left with. You know, I've got some hard feelings of my own about a pond that didn't hold water, but he's got water here. Another day or two spent on this site, and he would have had exactly what he wanted. And, you know, not to mention the previous contractor he didn't bring the elevation up anymore because maybe he didn't ask the question, did you and your neighbor get along over there? Is he neighborly? Well, that was one of the first questions I asked. Do you and your neighbor get along, and would he allow you to pull that fence up so we can extend that back slope over? And he's like, oh, absolutely, we're good friends. Well, looky there. That's solution number one, all because I had a conversation with the customer and we're willing to give him what he wants, opposed to my personal opinion. This contractor came in here, he gave a price, and he got close to that number, and he knew that he needed to spend 2 more days here, and he said, I'm gonna polish up these edges, I'm gonna take my amount of money, and I'm gonna get out of here. Well, there you go. You're left with something that you can't maintain. You're left with something that honestly isn't right, and you can see it. Water is the most accurate level in the world. Like I said earlier, we got 5 feet here, and we got maybe 6 inches over there. I'm honestly surprised that a hard rain hasn't washed out that emergency overflow, and he hasn't had other problems there. So we've caught it at a point that there are still things that can be done to manage the risk. But again, that leak, that's the biggest question mark on this one. But I'm going to get back to the office. I'm going to run some numbers based on the equipment I think we're going to need here. If you guys, you might be asking yourself, well, what type of equipment is it going to take there? Well, this is the type of job that we don't want to come in here and spend a lot of time, because one shower can really stop this work. So we're going to need to bring the proper equipment in here to get in, get it fixed, and get out. So I'm hopeful that we can get in here and get out of here in 5 days. So we got a lot of dirt to move here, and it's really not the best way to move it since the pond is here, but we're going to stay out of the pond if we can. So we're going to have to transfer this dirt across here, and we're going to have to build this levee up and out as we push dirt around the levee. So we all know dozers like to push straight. That's not going to be the case here. The only other option we would have is to use Bubba Dump. And well, I'm pretty confident the dozers are going to be more efficient and effective, and we'll only need one. So I'd recommend here the 850, the D4 for polishing up, the 210 or the 120, either one will be fine for hogging that leak out. But if we do have to deconstruct the dam and reconstruct the dam, it'd be really nice to have the 210 here. So I'm probably going to quote it with the 210. So back up a little bit. That's the 850 big dozer, the D4 little dozer, and then most likely the 210 excavator to hog that out quick, get it fixed quick. And if we got to take out the whole thing, we got the proper piece of equipment here. And then the roller to pack in a core properly, and the skid steer with the power rake to ensure that we can polish it up and get it ready for him to seed and straw. You guys can see we've got a couple of shapes here now. Underneath the crosshair, you see this orange rectangle. This is the topsoil pile. The Jeep was parked right about in here. And this is the leftover topsoil from the previous contractor, which probably should have been spread out somewhere, somehow, some way. But that's neither here nor there. This is where we are today. The blue is obviously the pond. It does not show water because this is an old Google image, and there wasn't water in this pond at this point in time. They actually drained the pond before they built the pond. And when I say built the pond, it was a cattle pond before that was very shallow, had a lot of just vegetation and growth in it, and that is the biggest reason that this guy wanted to turn this pond into what he had in his vision as his hopes and dreams. Obviously, he is still not there yet, and we are going to hopefully be able to give him a price that works for him. And the sad part about it is we do have to undo some of the work that the previous contractor had performed. We're hopeful that we don't have to tear all of this dam out all the way through here, as it appears as though there's only one leak, and it's right here. We can actually add that now. The goal would be to come in here and dig out this section of the dam to determine why this pond is leaking and if this is the true leak path. I'm assuming there's going to be some rock. He did state that they hit some rock underneath of the dam whenever they were supposedly putting in a core. Not for sure if a true core was put in. Going off of the pictures that the homeowner has from the pond build, pretty confident there's not a true core like we typically build. However, that doesn't mean that it won't hold water. It is obviously holding water, sort of. And that orange box that you see that I just drew is the leak path. And then what we have to do, other than determine what is going on within that leak path, we have got to come into this section right over here and essentially add height to all of this, and we're also going to have to add some width right over in here. It gets to where the elevation is at a good point that we can tie it into, and it's actually going to come along that fence row. So I've asked the homeowner to remove this fence from this post right here all the way down through this tree line, which is the adjoining property. And as mentioned in a video earlier, he has a great relationship, so he doesn't see that being a problem. The reason we need to do that is the water comes down from over in here and goes along this fence, comes all the way down into these trees, and you guys saw that water that was down in here. So he's actually creating a bad spot for his neighbor, and I have recommended that we fix that for his neighbor, and his neighbor can reestablish this fence long term, but ensure that none of this water ends up down here in this low spot for the cows to create a muck nasty mess that's going to be nothing but a mosquito pit long term. So we're actually going to fade this dam over into this area here and then pull it back around and throw a really nice back slope on this about to this point here just below where it leaks, and then bring it on around and connect it over to this corner and tie everything into just below where the Jeep was parked there. So this gives you all a really good view of where all of the work, I know it's not a food plot, but let's label this one green. Increase elevation / back slope. Now, with all of that being said, currently what he has is an emergency overflow that comes out of this corner and spills out onto some rock. I'm not saying an emergency overflow is a bad thing, but this head section up in here receives a lot of water coming down this hillside from the house. The house's gutters and etc. dump water out this direction. Then it comes into this section here, and then the water comes all the way down into the pond. So this pond is not only fed by a spring that you guys saw right here in this corner, but it's also fed with a lot of water that comes down this hillside. So water fluctuation in height could be significant. So I have also recommended, instead of it just being an emergency overflow that keeps this wet all the time and it's hard for him to manage, if we bring a pipe from this corner where the emergency overflow is today, and we bring it down into the ditch to about right here, this will ensure that he can get his water off of his hillside down to that ditch, which then all of this riprap that he has in place today carries it to the county road ditch. And the only area that he would have to weed eat and or spray is this rip-wrapped area, and all of this up in here could be covered up completely to ensure that he can maintain and manage the backside of the new slope that we provide for him, which also ensures that if that emergency overflow was to ever jump fast enough and not make it into the emergency overflow he has today and end up over here in these trees, which again is another negative for his neighbor, we can mitigate all of those problems by installing a 15-inch pipe that gets through the dam to the ditch and ensures all of that water fluctuation can come through the pipe instead of over the dam essentially, which creates a washout problem long term and something that he continually has to maintain. Whereas if we get down here on this flat ground, yeah, that's still going to be a lot of water coming out of that pipe hitting this riprap area, but it's flat, and if he does have to maintain it, it's simply a ditch opposed to the actual dam of the pond, which mitigates the risk of, mentioned just a second ago, the washout up in this area, which is key to not happen. And if there's any washout, it sends it all the way down here past the back slope, in which we will increase so that he can maintain all of this really nicely and ensure if he ever has any leaks pop up in the future, he can find them because he's mowing it. That's how he found this one, actually. He can't get anything down in here to mow it, so he's having to weed eat this entire section because it stays wet, and we're assuming that's because of this leak path here. Now, I mentioned this topsoil pile earlier. There's probably, you guys see Bubba Dump in multiple videos on DP's channel and some videos on my channel here. Bubba Dump is a 30-ton truck. So essentially, the way I'd like to calculate this topsoil pile is basically 10 Bubba Dump loads is what I'm assuming. There may be more than that, but it should have been taken care of before the original contractor left. The benefit to it is, I believe we are going to need some dirt from this area here. You guys saw, again, the Jeep was parked right about here. If we take this area, which was not cut from the previous contractor, but dirt just below it was utilized to build the dam, I'm making the assumption, I don't have a crystal ball for what is under the top of the dirt, but I'm operating and going to quote under the assumption that this is good clay content soil, and we can actually draw this pond a little bit larger and draw it back in this direction so that we have enough dirt. We're going to call that, well, I guess I shouldn't call it dirt fill, but call it fill dirt, and call that clay type, so that we know when Mike reviews this print that that's the dirt that we're going to utilize to increase the elevation all along through here so that it is good water sealing dirt. And that will essentially add depth and size to this pond. Again, that's going to be fill dirt, clay, and you guys can see there that that's going to take that water line and it's going to move it towards the topsoil pile. So once we hog all this dirt out to utilize it to build up this elevation, I know I said that twice, but that just ensure that you guys wrap your mind around what we're going to do here. And to give you that, I think I said it earlier in the video, but I'll say it again. Over here, it's nothing, but as we progress down through here, it gets close to 4 to 5 feet, especially over here. And then by the time we make it up here towards the head section, it starts to fade out to nothing again. But you can see that's a pretty large area, but it's not 100% needed of fill, right? This is a slope that we're going to fill, so this dirt can be any dirt. It doesn't really matter. It can be just straight fill dirt. I mean, honestly, it could be sand. We don't prefer sand, but it could be, because all we're doing is creating a better slope after we solve the leak problem. And we've got all this dirt in here that we can work with. And as soon as we strip all that out of there, the topsoil pile is close enough, we can come from this corner and start pushing it down towards the dam where we have dirt that won't really grow vegetation all that well because it's got a really high clay content. And we can start painting all of this top side and this back slope with that darker dirt. We call it painting because you're taking the light colored dirt and you turn it into dark colored dirt because it actually has good organic matter to it so that it will grow vegetation such as grass. And we can keep pushing that down and over and around. And once we get to this backside, if need be, we can use the haul truck or the dump truck to load here, drive around, dump at the bottom, and then take the dozer and shove that back slope up from the bottom side, or dump it on the top side. and shove it down and use gravity in our favor. It allows us to have either option, and when you're moving dirt, options are key. Where things get a little bit more cramped, it's over here in this corner. I've recommended and told him to ask his neighbor if we could remove several of these trees in here so that we can bring that back slope out and tie it into this pasture area really nicely. And again, we can use the same topsoil from over here, bring it around this corner, and paint up the back side of this back slope that we're going to add as well. So to kind of recap on that, step number 1, find the leak, determine why it's leaking and what it takes to fix it. If it's because there isn't a true core and we need to dig down into the rock, we may end up needing to remove this section of the dam to core it in properly, and then part of this, assuming there is a core. If there isn't a core, we would have to requote this job to tear out 100% of the current dam. We're hopeful that that doesn't happen because he has spent a significant amount of money to stock this pond with bluegill and bass. He's really hoping to keep them alive. So figuring out what the leak is, step number 1. If we can do that by digging up to the face of the dam without draining any of the water, we will. I think if you guys go back on DP's channel several videos ago, we actually repaired a slide on a pond, and we didn't drain it all the way as it was stocked as well. I'm not 100% confident of the depth of this pond, where that previous pond that was repaired was roughly 18 feet deep, so we weren't concerned about taking half the water out of it. If this pond is only 6 or 7 feet deep and we do need to remove more levee, we may need to drain at least a quarter of this water out to ensure that we don't blow the dam out whenever we go to repair this leak. But that would be step number 1, repair the leak. Step number 2 would be to hog this dirt out in this area here, which I believe there is enough dirt in this area to utilize for the elevation increase all the way through here. And then also get dirt for this back slope to carry it over and solve the problem he's created on his neighbor's property, and get that back slope brought down here over top of where that leak shows itself, which is roughly in this area. And then the last step of the process would be to take all of this topsoil and smooth it out properly, paint up all the dirt that we added all the way through this area, and tie everything in really nicely into his actual yard so that he can get it all planted and looking like it is actually built properly, sloped properly, back sloped properly, sealed properly, and then also gain extra water area. I'm assuming he's going to gain about 1/8 of an acre here. And I believe his pond currently is somewhere in that 1/2 to 3/4 of an acre. So he may end up close to a full acre, but for sure 3/4 of an acre. Hopefully that gives you guys the explanation that you need to understand the process of how we're going to solve this customer's problem and provide him with his hopes and dreams. We'll put some numbers to that. Hopefully this customer likes the number, and ultimately we get this job for 2024 and get to repair another pond and give a customer what they really want. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, like, comment, subscribe.